Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Deck podcast. Today, we're joined by my one and only sister, Johar. Lately I've just been so inspired by you, like how strong you are. You're such a warrior, and you're so beautiful and confident, and you raise a family, and you work 500 jobs as a freelancer. And what's interesting is that you wrote an article like a little while ago about self-esteem, and I think even I was a bit, I got to kind of know some of the deeper insecurities that you've gone through and how you've kind of come through and how you still have to walk through some of that. So today we're going to be talking about the topic of embracing the curves, your journey of how you went from borderline suicidal to now taking selfies. If you guys haven't already checked out the article, please do visit the Daily Deck website and you can find it. She shares her story and it's beautiful, it's really transparent, and it was incredibly inspiring, especially to me. So I just want to give you the space to talk about this a little bit more and just to take us back through your journey for how it all started for you. So when is the first time you began to feel your insecurities and what do you think triggered it?
Um, wow, that's quite a loaded question, I would have to say. I think um I mean and this is not like to like I mean this has nothing to do with you per se. But when you were born, Susie, like I was about 6 years old, right? And you of course you were like this super cute little thing and all of that, and I had just gone into first grade. And first grade is when I really remember being bullied for the first time, especially about my looks. Okay, so I was bullied before in school, but the first grade is when I can really, like, up until now, even like very vividly remember it. And so whenever we would go out and people would kind of compare you, and they're like, oh, your sister's so cute, your sister's so sweet, and look at that smile and look at her eyes. And like, you were getting all of these compliments, which I'm sure I probably got when I was a baby, but obviously I don't remember that. Whereas I was being bullied in school, being like, oh, you look like this, you're so dark, why do you have teeth like that? And oh, does your mom not care about your hair? All these kinds of really nasty things as a 6-year old, which was quite a lot to process. And I remember feeling like I couldn't really talk to anybody about it because I felt like, my mom was occupied with you and with my brother and me. And whenever I would tell my mom, like, oh, kids in school are saying these things, she would just say to me, like, oh, you're the most beautiful little girl and all of that. And I remember thinking that, you have to say that because you're my mom. And I think obviously she meant well, but it didn't really help me at that point of time because um, I think what I needed was for her to help me, like, probably pray through it and like rebuke those things. She was doing her best. She was juggling three little kids and all of that, but it didn't really help me the way I needed to be helped at that point of time. So that's, I guess, what the first memory I can say of, like, starting to really have these sort of self-esteem issues as a kid.
Okay, that's really helpful to kind of go back to where it started. So take us through, your teenage years. Obviously, puberty is a time where a lot of people are having like body changes and things like that, and struggling with, like acne and things. And you're sometimes not in control of what your body looks like and what it's becoming. How did you kind of navigate that in terms of your self-esteem and in terms of the weight of the bullying that you had been carrying from such a young age? How did you navigate your teens going through all that?
Yeah, I think not in the best way for sure. So just to, I mean, to give you like a very brief background, the bullying that I suffered was more than just verbal. It wasn't just like, teasing or like making fun, which, almost everybody goes through at some point of their life. The bullying that I faced became physical at certain points of time. I was I remember I being pushed down the stairs once or twice. I remember, I mean, I still have stitches under here from my head being slammed in the desk. And I mean, I went through quite severe, I mean, not just, and the funny thing is, not even just by students, but also by staff, which was quite sad. I remember being held by the neck and choked and pushed against the wall by staff, um, and all kinds of things. So I mean, I remember going through, I mean, I was too scared um, at that point to even talk to anybody about it. At the time, our mom was going through these severe asthma attacks. We were living in a different house back then where there was construction going on, and my dad was traveling quite a lot. And she would have these regular, severe asthma attacks at that point of time. And I remember the doctor telling me, like, don't stress out your mother, don't stress out your mother. And so I was too afraid to even tell her, what was going on. So I didn't have anywhere to go. On top of that, we were Christian family, um, and we went to church regularly, and I felt like this pressure to be a Christian. Like, everybody's like, oh, you're a leader's daughter. People look up to you. People, you're an example. And I was like, I need to be this example. I need to be this example, and that people are looking for. And so I just felt like I had to put this mask on whenever I would go to church. I had to put this mask on when I would come home to show that everything was okay. And I would go to school terrified up until one point of time it affected my health. I ended up going through 2 years of really suffering with my health, and doctors couldn't diagnose what happened to me and all of that. And that's another story for another day. But the bullying got to a point where it like it became a medical condition eventually, and that's when I realized like something's got to change. And I think my mom picked up on it, and so she spoke to our pastor's wife at the time, because I think she realized that she couldn't get get things out of me the way I needed to be spoken to. And so our pastor's wife um, took me out, took the time to sit me down. And it was Sahara Center. It was this very new mall at the time. And, spoke to me about the truths about myself. And funnily enough, I hadn't even heard those truths about, how God actually looks at me up until that point of time. Or maybe I had, but it really didn't hit me as such. And so the fact that that woman was even interested enough to like come from Dubai to Sharjah, which is where we were living, a completely different city, and sit down and meet with me and talk to me was the first time I felt like, hey, I am valuable. Maybe I'm valuable. And so that's about, I think, when it started to kind of take a turn for me. um yeah. And I think when she said that, hey, I think that just her saying that, listen, I'm here for you and you can say anything that you want to say without being afraid, and you don't have to be ashamed of saying anything. That was like kind of a breakthrough moment for me, and I was about 14 years at the time.
Okay, that's really cool. I think what's really important sometimes is for people. from the church or outside of the church to kind of come behind younger people and to really encourage them and to really try and help set the path for young women to grow up godly, knowing who they are, being secure in themselves for women and for men. Because insecurity doesn't always lie with women, but sometimes even men go through it and they don't talk about it. So I think that we have a real responsibility if we are older than someone, if we have a little bit more wisdom on a subject of identity, that's something that we really need to shed light on to the younger generation, because we need to also pay it forward and make sure that they try and make sure they don't go through the same mistakes, because bullying, depression, anorexia, all of these things are on the rise right now, and they are really huge in our society right now. And sometimes even anorexia or obesity can be related to bullying or related to some unrealistic expectations. I mean, yes, it's 2022. There has been a bit of a movement towards body positivity, but we're still not there yet. I think there's still a long way for us to go. So, just on the topic of eating, you mentioned in your article something really interesting. You mentioned that you used to eat your feelings away sometimes when you used to go through some difficulties, and you kind of used food as this like outlet to be happy. So, it like eating evoked that emotion of happiness. But how do you kind of manage that in a healthy way so that eating doesn't become an escapism method and it doesn't lead to then issues with like weight gain and cholesterol, those kind of things? So how do we manage eating in a healthy way and kind of avoid it becoming this escapism method? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, I mean, food still makes me happy, okay? Like, it's not like, okay, I don't enjoy eating anymore, or, I still love to eat. I still love the occasional junk food every now and again. And, I think sometimes I still, even today, for like, when I've just had a really hard week, um, for me, like a happy, relaxing thing is to just, order in, put on Netflix, and just unwind that way. But I think for me, the way I was able to break that like dependency on food for comfort was kind of like, there's a few things. One is questioning myself, like, why am I ordering food, or why am I eating this? Like, am I eating because I'm hungry? Am I eating because, I'm just trying to satisfy a craving? Am I eating, like, why? Or is there something like that's really triggering me to, to like eat? If, especially like if it's not even a meal time, if it's just, just midnight or whatever. So trying to like, and then like just reflecting before I dive in. The second thing I would say is like asking myself, is this gonna is this gonna help me in the long term? Like, if I'm gonna have to run 5 miles or exercise 5 miles to like just get rid of what I'm putting inside of me, like that's even more painful than actually eating it.
Mm,
And I probably
yeah.
don't even have the time to do it. I'm probably not, which means I'm not going to do it. So that's another thing I ask myself. And the third thing is like, now being a mom, I ask myself, like, would I allow my kid to eat this? um you know I mean, it's different when I wasn't a mom. I think when I wasn't a mom, I would say like I would probably ask, like, is it worth spending my money on it? Like, can I can I gain something else from this money that I'm gonna spend? Something that's gonna help me, something else that might make me happy, like going out to a movie or going out with friends or something else. That is there an alternative? Now I think I would ask myself, so these are some of the things. Basically, just reflecting before I like, not giving in to the impulse of eating. But also, if I am going through a hard time, in general, if I'm struggling with something, I am usually I would be on high alert and know, because I know what my tendencies are. So I would be quite conscious of making sure that I'm talking about it, praying about it, trying to deal with the situation and not like sweeping it under the rug. Because when I sweep it under the rug is when I tend to like lean into, looking elsewhere for comfort. And the third thing is like, and I'm still working on this. I'm not the best at it, but like I'm training myself rather to like try to run to God for comfort. I still tend to run to other things, especially like human beings for comfort and you know just to be able to vent and process things. But trying to make that God like my go-to for first for comfort, for even just processing things, dealing with things, and yeah. So, but I'm in the process of that. I'm not perfect.
Yeah, I understand. And I think even things like a stressful day, I mean, I can totally relate with you. And I was also just convicted myself of, just I mean, no, it's not wrong for us to feel like food makes us happy. Yeah, I mean, like we might be foodies, we might like that experience, we might like trying different things and stuff. But then even the small things like you have a stressful day and you go to food, it's the same thing as, if you're having a stressful day and you're going out and binge drinking, and
Yeah.
it's not really that different because we're just kind of trying to find comfort in other places that are only temporary when we know that comfort in God is long lasting. So I think even if we bring it to God first, things like stressful days, things like disappointment, things like sadness. Yes, it's okay to have an occasional treat day, but you've got to know your limitations and you've really got to understand that as long as God is not the first priority in your life and other things are, then even things like using food to kind of deal with and tackle your issues can really be harmful to your body, to your mind, to your sense of holistic well being. So now I just want to ask a little bit about how you navigated relationships. Now, you mentioned that in your article about how you were worried that you wouldn't be able to get a date to prom because you were a little bit on the heavier side and you were kind of worried about that. And I think a lot of folks can kind of relate um, with that as well. So, how has weight impacted your relationships? How has it impacted your esteem when you think about how men see you? And yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't just me being worried that I wouldn't get a date to prom. Like I was told by people in church and out of church that, oh, if you don't take care of your body, men are not going to want you. Like just plain as simple as that. And
Wow.
being overweight was considered not taking care of your body. And like they didn't sometimes they didn't even realize that, man, I wasn't in control of it at that point of time. Like this was around the age of what, 17. As I mentioned, I went through like severe medical issues as well, and I had to like stop. I stopped eating almost for 2 years. Like I barely ate, and then it took a while for me to be able to get back to start eating properly again. But I couldn't be active. Like I couldn't run, I couldn't walk without being in pain for I think almost 3 years, um, after the surgery and all of that. So it wasn't even in my control. But I was told around that age, 17, 16, that, oh, if you don't take care of your weight, your body, you don't take care of your weight, men are not going to want you. And women told me this, funnily enough, not even men. But it was women that told me this. And yeah, so obviously prom came up, and my pretty friends all got dates, and the like guys were like falling over them and like competing over them, and here I was, this awkward little teenager, and I was like, man, nobody's gonna like want me. um and fun, it turned out the other way. Like someone did ask me and I said no, because I didn't want to go with the person. But I think it really, I mean, it just made me really terrified. Like, okay, what if I make myself thin. I can not eat again, or I can suffer pain and walk and try to lose the weight, and really like almost beat myself into losing weight now. But like, what if down the line I can't? Like, what happens when I get, like, if I get married, if I get pregnant, all of those things. Like, it just really, it made me scared. And
Mhm.
I was like, how can this be true? You know, um, and then like I used to wonder, like, oh, does that mean like if I gain weight, then I'm gonna be cheated on, or what is it like?
Mhm.
And then um, with a lot of fear and trembling and insecurity, I did get into a relationship at the age of 18 years old. It was a Christian relationship. And at the time, like, I had put on weight. Like, I wasn't thin anymore. I wasn't like obese or anything, but I wasn't thin either. And I remember him just speaking truth over me regularly. So it wasn't, I mean, he did of course compliment me, like, oh, you're so beautiful and all of that. But he would read the Bible to me, and just like speak truth over me. And he also said to me, he was like, listen, you can be 100 pounds, or 100 pounds, because they use pounds. But if you are confident, if you are happy with yourself, that's all that matters. And nobody, like, not neither me nor anybody else can rob you of that. And that is more attractive to men than anything else. And so that kind of helped me shift my focus a little bit. um and I realized that, what, it wasn't about my, like, I was putting too much pressure on my weight. I was putting too much pressure on my looks, and uh not enough pressure on feeling good and feeling healthy in my mind and in my body, like feeling healthy spiritually as well. Like, I was allowing this issue of my weight and my looks to like almost become an idol, and a hindrance to every other relationship that I was, gonna get into. I had to, at that point, then start like rebuking words that had been spoken over me. I had to go through a series of deliverance sessions, because I had allowed this to like really permeate in my spirit for, I mean, like I said, 6 years, since I was 6 years old, you know. So for over what, 12, 13 years at that point of time. And now, of course, now I'm married. I wasn't like the thin skinny bride at all. We have a healthy child. I remember when I went to the doctor and I was pregnant, and she said, oh, you're this weight, which means you probably won't have a healthy child, and you probably lose the child and all of that. And I had to like I've learned how to constantly rebuke all the negative thoughts that and words that people have spoken to me just because of my weight. And it's made me a healthier, happier, like, I am healthier now than I was when I was skinny. Okay. I'm physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I am far healthier now than when I was, really, really thin. and happier. And so that is, according to me, that's what matters. Yeah, sorry. There's one more thing I think I want to say. Like, the Bible says, um, I'm not, maybe not saying this correctly. So in Philippians 4, and I'm paraphrasing right now, it says, whatever is true, whatever is pure, whatever is right, whatever is just, think about these things. And so it's important. It became important, and I realized quite quickly that it was important for me to stop pondering on what is false, what the devil has tried to throw at me for years is false. Like, it's against the Bible, it's against what God says, it's against, I mean, where in the Bible does it say, oh, if you're overweight, you're undesirable? No, it doesn't say that. In fact, like, Songs of Solomon, it talks about her confidence and how she exuberates and radiates beauty because of her confidence, and that is glorious. And so uh think about and ponder on these things that is true. Like, what does the Bible say about you? What does God say about you? What is the truth? And, like, let that, like, sink in, because that is what really transformed me and relationships and my view of relationships, men, marriage, family, all of that.
Wow, that's really impactful. I didn't actually see it like that. I mean, you're right. The Bible doesn't even say anything about appearance and things like that. The Bible talks about godliness. So I actually wanted to circle back to something you said about deliverance. So I wanted to know from you, if someone is going through or kind of working through some of the damage that's been caused by maybe bullying, maybe rejection, um, harassment, something like that. Do you have any practical steps that someone can take to kind of heal from that kind of pain?
Yeah. To be honest, I think it's quite difficult to do that on your own, just because the whole process of deliverance can leave you feeling very, very vulnerable, feeling very raw, and feeling kind of exposed and wounded, right? So it is kind of difficult to do that on your own. However, what I would say is, as we started, is like, try to figure out where it started. And sometimes it may not even be your very first memory, right? Like, for me, it's like when I was 6 years old, but it could have happened even before that. But maybe God is gonna you can ask God to remind you or to show you where it began, and God will do that, because God doesn't like for anything to really come in between um your relationship with him. uh and so try to figure out where it began. First of all, what is the issue? Is the issue self-esteem? Is the issue you know like, what is it? Is it self-hate? Because self-esteem and self-hate is quite different. What is the issue? Where did it start from? And what is stopping you from giving that up right now? Because sometimes that issue, and that the way it has shaped you and your personality and that persona, can often even become a safety blanket that you're too scared to even let go of. It also means that you might have to release forgiveness, which you might not want to. It means that you might have to let God into places that you might have just been trying to hold on to for yourself for a really long time. It might mean that you may have to address certain people, especially like people within your family, who may have contributed to some of the issues. So, what is identifying what are the blocks to you kind of overcoming it right now, And once you've done that, then my advice to you would be to like find someone who you can trust, who's not going to make you feel ashamed, who's not going to make you feel judged, but who's also equipped to help you break some of those words and things that have been spoken over your life, speak truth back into your life, and someone whom you can kind of go back to when you're struggling, because there will still be hard days. It's not like, okay, I've delivered, it's done, it's over. The battle keeps going, especially when it's been a long-term thing. And so someone that you can keep going back to and saying like, I'm struggling with this today, or yeah.
Wow, I mean, that is so helpful. Thank you for that. So, Joe, I mean, now you are a mother. We just fast forwarded about 57 years. I'm just kidding. We talked about your childhood. We talked about how you went through your teenage, you navigating relationships, and now you're a mother to a 2-year-old, and you've been able to have a really beautiful and healthy child in spite of your struggles with your weight and even the obesity that you mentioned. So, how do you stay confident about your body until now, and like in spite of the bodily changes that come with motherhood? How do you still stay confident to this day when you struggle with self-esteem?
I think again, it comes back to rejecting lies, rejecting disqualifying thoughts. It's super tough, especially when you're pregnant or when you've just had a baby. Like there's so much of like hormonal changes and emotions and like all kinds of things going through your head, your sleep deprived, and all of that. Like you've got dark circles, stretch marks, everything aches and all of that. It is super tough. I think for me, being honest with my husband is like has been key, because if I'm gonna hide it from him, uh, I mean, initially I did. Like, I was like, oh, I'm not going to tell him about it because maybe he's going to start seeing me in that light. But that didn't help anything. Like, it just made me feel even worse. I think being really honest, being really transparent, and saying like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm scared. Like I'm scared of you not being attracted to me anymore, and you just being like really open about it. Firstly, he didn't, I mean, my husband is not like the most vocal person, right? So he's not going to be like, no, that's not true, and blah blah blah. But like he's kind of more silent and things. But he then goes back and he prays for me, and he's like, interceding for me, because I can't even pray for myself at that point of time. I'm too exhausted. And so having him intercede for me, having him pray for me, and then checking in and be like, hey, how you feeling? And I'm realizing, oh, I don't feel that anymore. So that's like number one. Number two is like maybe have some postcards. Sometimes I change the wallpaper on my phone to to say like words that are true from scripture. And number three is I would just put on worship music. um yeah, because worship kind of helps drown out the lies and the nonsense that is there.
Okay. Wow, that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. My last question is, I just wanted to know, what would be your advice to someone who is struggling with their weight, and that's kind of been a constant issue? It's been a bit of back and forth. And how would you encourage someone who's going through something like this?
I think number one is know that you're not alone. You know, I mean, though your struggles are unique and your struggles, they're not anybody else's, also know that you're not alone. Okay. Secondly, I would say, if you try to stay away from focusing on the weight aspect of it, because the weight is a number. and try to focus on the health part of it. Well, like I said, what is important is being healthy with what you eat, but also with the way you think and the way you approach life, right? So try to focus on remaining healthy. Like, I'm going to focus on being a healthier individual, and the weight may or may not follow, but that's a completely different story. um, and the last bit of encouragement I would say to you is, don't give in to self-deprecating words, whether they're coming from yourself, whether they're coming from others. Learn to fight back, because you do have fight in you, and you are, like, each one of us are fighters. So learn to fight back, and realize that, like, guys, this is a battle. This is not just like, oh, this is my life. You are in a battle, and if you're gonna sit back and be like, oh, this is my life, I can't do anything about it, it's gonna get the better of you. But if you approach this with a mindset of, hey, I'm gonna fight this, I'm gonna overcome this, I'm gonna defeat it, you will. And so approach it with that mindset, tackle it headstrong, and you'll get there. And lastly, I would say, if you can, ask for help.
And that's us out of time. Thank you so much, Joe. I mean, this is not an easy topic to discuss. It really isn't, especially talking about bullying and suicidal thoughts and things like that. If you haven't already checked out the article, please do. I mean, it is life changing. I'm not even just promoting for the sake of it. I mean, I read it and I was already convicted of some things. One thing you guys may not know is that obesity runs in our family, so sometimes we try to tackle it and it just backfires, or it doesn't seem to go anywhere. And I felt those frustrations too. So if you're going through that, trust me, you're not alone. We're here to help. We're happy to talk you through it. In a previous podcast, Joe mentioned, we are not therapists, but we are empathizers, and we can be there for you. We can be a friend, and we're just here to be a voice for the community. If you're going through something, please reach out to us. Please drop a comment, drop us a DM, and we would love to hear from you. And we will see you next time.
Bye, Susie. Bye, everybody.
Peace out.